I had no business being out in the woods at that hour, but something about that night had me drawn to it. Maybe it was the way the mist hung low, creeping around the trees like it had a life of its own. Or maybe it was that eerie silence that swallowed everything, as if the forest was holding its breath. I was only supposed to be out for a short walk, clear my head, get some air. But as soon as I left the path, I knew I'd gone too far. The deeper I went, the thicker the mist became. I could barely see my hands in front of me, and every step seemed to echo, bouncing off the unseen trees around me. The cold air felt heavy, pressing down on me with a weight I couldn't explain. I could hear my own breath, harsh and shallow, as I made my way through the undergrowth. And then something caught my eye, a faint, flickering light in the distance. I didn't want to go toward it, not really, but some part of me felt compelled to. I pushed through the brush, branches scraping my arms and snagging my clothes. The light bobbed and shifted, and I realized it was moving, almost like it was floating. It was warm and golden, like the glow of an old lantern. For a moment it felt comforting, but then I noticed something that made my blood turn cold. The light wasn't alone. Just beyond the glow I could make out figures, dark, misshapen shadows. They were still at first, but as I stepped closer, they started to sway, their shapes blurring in and out of the mist. I froze, rooted to the spot, but the light flickered again, beckoning me forward. I tried to turn back, but it was like my feet had a mind of their own, pulling me toward that warm, haunting glow. As I moved closer, the figures became clearer. They were people, or had been once. I could see pale, hollow faces, eyes staring blankly ahead as they swayed, almost in rhythm with each other. Their mouths hung open, dark and empty, like something had hollowed them out from the inside. The lantern moved again, casting shadows that seemed to stretch and twist, reaching out toward me. I don't know how long I stood there, watching, paralyzed. But then I heard something, a faint, wet whisper, almost like someone was trying to speak but couldn't find the words. It was close, too close, coming from just behind me. I turned, heart pounding, and saw her. She was small, no taller than a child, with long, matted hair falling over her face. Her dress was torn, dirty, and clung to her like a second skin. But it was her hands that sent a shiver down my spine, small, claw-like, with long, brittle nails stained a sickly dark red. She reached for me, and as she moved, I could hear the sound of bones cracking, grinding with each slow step. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. I could feel her icy breath on my neck, hear that same wet whisper, and then her face. She lifted her head just enough for me to see two empty, gaping holes where her eyes should have been. "Help me," she rasped, voice raw and broken. The shadows around us seemed to pulse, drawn to her voice. "Please, find me." I stumbled back, nearly tripping over a root, but her hand shot out, grabbing my arm with a grip that was stronger than it had any right to be. She was cold, so cold it felt like fire against my skin, and her fingers dug in, holding me there as if she'd never let go. Find me," she repeated, voice cracking as if it was the only thing she knew how to say. Suddenly the light went out, plunging us into darkness. The shadows closed in, moving closer, their faces just inches from mine, mouths opening wider and wider, until all I could see were rows of sharp, jagged teeth. I tried to pull away, but she wouldn't let go, her hand tightening around my wrist until I thought my bones would snap. And then just as suddenly, she was gone. The light returned, flickering softly, and the shadows had vanished. I was alone again, standing in the forest, my skin numb with cold and my heart racing. I stumbled back the way I came, tripping and scrambling through the mist until I saw the edge of the woods. But as I stepped out into the clearing, I felt something heavy in my hand. I looked down and saw a small, cracked lantern, the glass smeared with dark stains. I dropped it, heart pounding, and ran without looking back, but as I reached my car, I heard that same faint, wet whisper carried on the wind. "Find me, find me." To this day, I still don't know what she wanted me to find, but every night, I see that light flickering in the woods, just at the edge of the trees, waiting. And I know deep down that she's still there, waiting for me to come back.